Episode 236, How to Achieve Wealth and Success.
You're listening to the very best podcast in the world on health, wealth, and happiness. Please remember to leave a review and share with all your friends and family. And here is your host, Lars Hilser.
And it's Monday. Welcome to the very best podcast in the world, your only source in the universe for personal supremacy through health, wealth, and happiness. Now, after the 6-month challenge from Friday, I kind of wanted to hook up on that and go through, a few pointers that might also be interesting and helpful for you to actually meet the goals of that 6-month challenge and to make it a bit easier for people to get there and to inspire upon other episodes that we have been through. Probably the most infamous of which was episode 40, the financial freedom exercise. One of the first exercises, I think, that we did on the podcast here, and I think one of the most downloaded episodes and probably one of the most impactful ones and probably the one most in your face of those wallet raping self-improvement gurus out there. So pretty cool. Go back to that as well. Before we get started though, the normal and the new normal housekeeping, number one of which is and will remain always, sharing is caring. So if this episode interests you in particular, or might be even more valuable to someone in your sphere of influence, please make sure to share it with them. Right? Same goes for sharing these episodes in general to your social media feeds. And here's why. A few weeks ago, I got a very impactful email from somebody that had read on a friend's feed an episode of this podcast that, that friend had shared. And they went through that episode and basically started to subscribe and binge listen to all of the random ramblings that I've been shooting off here. And it was so helpful to that person that they just came back to me with an email and said, look, it took me a few weeks to binge all of the content and to actually make sense of it. But, in retrospect, it's just such an enlightenment for me that they wrote me that email. So therefore, I want to encourage you to generally share the stuff here. The reason, again, being more obvious than I can't make it more obvious than through the example that I just said. It's like throwing hooks in the pond. The more you throw, the more you will improve the lives of the fish that, no, you're not. But there's a high likelihood that people will benefit. So therefore, I'm constantly asking for you to just share. That being said, item number 2 on the housekeeping list is yada, yada, yada. Views are my own blah. And don't reflect anyone else, whatever. You know the drill. Number 3, construction mode. So these episodes are going to be short and sweet for the foreseeable future because remodeling takes more time than anticipated. And when your better half comes down with ideas, they have to be executed quickly. Happy wife, happy life. We're going to do an episode about that, I think, in the near future. But now that we have that off the table, let's get started with a few things that we're actually going to go through. Number one of which is to write down clear goals. And why should you write them down? Well, you're holding yourself accountable, right? If it's written down somewhere, it's the truth. Well, not necessarily, but it's your truth, right? So if you want to be, in a certain position in life in the next decade, right? Take a long sheet of paper, and at the bottom of it, you write where you want to be in a decade, right? And on the top, you start writing how you're going to get there, and it's going to be totally exciting. And make sure to plan in plenty of pitfalls, because there are going to be more than you wish for. Trust me on that. It's not going to be easy peasy. That's just not how life is. Or to quote Justin Hammer from Iron Man, this ain't Canada, right? And so, there's a lot of stuff that you have to consider, which will, eventually may end up breaking your neck, but then it's about, getting in the wheelchair, doing the whole thing all over again, but having learned your lessons. Next is to create daily good habits, or good daily habits, whichever way you put it, right? And it's about, really being on time and listening to your natural rhythm. I know that I have repeatedly mentioned, but at the same time criticized the early risers BS that's going on. If that is not your cup of tea, don't get up in the fucking morning, right? Sleep in if you can, right? If your most productive time is at night, make sure that you are awake then and sleep some other time. No matter what other people tell you, if you can arrange that for yourself, do it. That's what I do, because, I'm a night person. And that's just how I operate. Now, we've got handyman and everything on the farm. So I need to get up early in the morning, which leads to long days and sleep deprivation. But it works out for a certain period of time, to keep that in mind. And of course, sleep isn't everything. Good diet, and that kind of ordeal. You know what I'm going at, right? Good routines, or good daily habits are, just that. Engage in daily self-improvement, right? We're going to, in fact, let's do an episode this week about journaling, right? Because there's no better way to learn from your mistakes than being self-reflected. And we're going to do an episode this week, I think maybe next, about journaling, because that's been insanely helpful for me for the last couple of decades. It's just, writing down the stuff that went well, blah, 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 blah. We'll get into that in a separate episode. Next is to take care of your personal health. I already scratched that on the surface, but it's really about, what you take in to your body, of course, the meals that you hopefully prepare yourself. Yeah, takes a lot of time, takes a lot of energy, but the food is just so fucking good if you made it yourself. If you're in the lucky position to be able, not to be evil, but to be able to produce the food yourself, at least in parts, totally gets a different angle, different pitch to it, right? And, what's better than standing in your vegetable garden and, kind of picking the fruit, and it's just an amazing feeling to get down to. But this also includes exercise, right? And no, I'm not talking about these hour-long gym routines, where I don't know if you're wasting time or not, but I heard an interesting exploit that I'm going to go investigate further, which, was that 10 minutes of running per day is enough, to really be in an over okay shape. And I found that fascinating. So I'm going to go through that later on. And that's on my research list, which, is expanding, obviously, due to the fact that I have no time. But yeah, at least we have the time together that we can invest, so that, I can share my random ramblings with you. Next, think positive. I'm not going to go into this in any detail. There are tons of episodes. I think, probably close to 5, that we've dedicated to positive thinking. So go in the backlog, check the episodes there. How to think more positive. That's something you can easily learn. Next is to reject all self-limiting thoughts. And no, don't climb on a windowsill on the 30th floor of a building and jump down and think that you can fly. You can't. That is a self-limitation you have. And it's somewhere in the physics books, in the physics section library. You may want to look that up before, you go too insane about eradicating self-limiting thoughts. However, it's about, things like, I can't start a business. Yes, you can. It's easy. And there's plenty of idiots out there who've proven that it is easy enough to do, who have become insanely wealthy with stupid, insane ideas. So, those kind of thoughts, right? Next is to live below your means. I know that in a lot of cultures, meanwhile, it's really, about this aspect of impressing people with shit you can't afford, and that's just insane, right? Be humble and be modest. If you can afford the $1 million mansion, you have to have 10 million in the bank, right? Or if you want to afford the $5 million dollar yacht, you have to keep in mind that 10% of that per year is due for maintenance and, crew and whatnot, right? So you have to keep all of that in mind, right? It's not like, you go on your first contract and you get paid, a few $100,000 and you immediately go and blow it. That's not how the game works, right? It's about putting in a few years of elbow grease, putting everything in the bank, because in an ideal situation, you shouldn't have the time to spend money, right? That's how it was for me, at least, for the decade where I was flying really, really high. I was making shitloads of money, but I had no time to spend it or no opportunity, because I was stuck on a remote island somewhere in the Indian Ocean working for a hotel group. And there was no opportunity for me to spend the money, no matter how hard I tried. Right. And that's really what it's all about. It's about living below your means and saving the money so that you can then completely in a decade or so, throw up the finger and have all of that fuck you money in there and just spend it on whatever you want, because then it is self-replicating by that point, right? And you live off passive income. Important lesson to take away. Maybe we'll do an episode about that. Next is to spend time with like-minded people, right? You can surround yourself with anyone, really. But like-minded people are usually what brings you forward. Like-minded, I mean, business people, if you are into that business thing, right? You don't want to surround yourself with too many like-minded people, and always, because then you will be subject to what I call, isolation, right? You're going to be isolated or insulated. What's the correct word? Isolated, I think. In these mindsets, in these ideas, yeah, you'll be hell motivated, but you could be going in the totally wrong direction with your motivation. So you have to listen to that outside input that has to come every now and again. Always do more than the minimum. Right? There's a baseline that you want to have. And you always want to run, there we go, about 10% above baseline, always. Baseline is the minimum, 0%, that's the shit that you got to do. But getting to the next level is like, always do more than the minimum. Things I learned, for instance, was like, picking up a piece of trash that I would have otherwise walked by. It's like when I walk across the property to, I don't know, do whatever, and there's a piece of trash laying around, I'll just pick it up along the way, make an excursion to the trash can, put it in there, and then go about the stuff that I wanted to do in the first place, if I haven't forgotten them by then, right? That's something you would, expect. But that's really what it's about. 80% is fine in the business world. You can spend if you want to fill up the other 20% to get to 100, the amount of work you have to invest is exorbitantly higher than you would by just, leaving it at the 80%, getting away with that, because everybody's going to be satisfied, right? Nobody gives a fuck if the PowerPoint slide is cornflower blue. Nobody really does, except for these anal people. We all know them, especially since Fight Club. Last but not least, and I think we're going to conclude it with never, ever giving up, right? There's no reason to. The moment you give up, you oust any chance, or you kill any chance of succeeding, right? Hang in there until your last breath, right? And that only then can you call the quits, right? Because then you have really exhausted every resource at your disposal, and then you can say, okay, we're done here, right? And that's it. Only reason to give up if you've thrown all possible resources at the problem. Now that we have that settled, let's get started and carry on tomorrow when we're going to be talking about how unhappy customers are your greatest source of learning. And in that sense, I hope you have a good rest of your Monday. And if you already had your good Monday, have a good night. Leave your hands above the blanket. We'll be back in touch tomorrow. Peace out. Cheers, folks.